This is Cosplayer Charsie Luxxx, and of course I'm not in cosplay again. If you watched my last video where I made my announcement about my plans for my channel and everything, this is what I was wearing. But I may not be in cosplay today, but I am in 80s inspired aesthetic style, as you will, because today we are doing a movie review on the 1986 film April Fool's Day. And why are we doing a movie review on April Fool's Day? Considering that my whole entire theme for this month is revolved around spring break or college party related type of content, and that my punchline, is that correct? My quote for this theme is tan lines to chalk lines. Well, in my research of all these different horror movies that are revolved around spring break themed party going type ideas, that April Fool's Day is in fact a spring break vacation, and that all these college students are on holiday on their last year of college from their best friend Muffy, who takes them to her private island for a fancy party. I guess I shouldn't say too much yet without going spoiler alerts, and also viewer discretion advised. Kind of jumped very quickly into this one. I'm kind of excited to talk about this one. I got myself hyped up with my announcement and everything, even though you guys are going to see this the following week. I'm just really excited about this one because, well, obviously we give our thoughts at the end of the film, but I kind of announced that in the last video anyways, that this is one of my favorite films, so you can kind of guess exactly how I feel about this film. So we're going to talk about the cast and the crew. You have Jay Baker as Harvey, Pat Barlow as Clara, Lloyd Berry as Ferryman, Deborah Foreman as Muffy and Buffy, Deborah Goodrich as Nikki, Tom Heaton as Constable Porter and Uncle Frank, Leah Pinsett as Nan, Mike Nomad as Buck, Ken Oland as Rob, Griffin O'Neill as Skip, Clayton Ronner as Chaz, Amy Steele as Kit, Tom Wilson as Arch. Director was Fred Walton, and writer Danilo Bach. And I apologize, as always, if I butchered anyone's name. And as always, I am learning that my quick plot synopsis will come from IMDb first before I go into my in-depth story time talking about the movie, the way that I want to talk about the movie. 9 college students staying at a friend's remote island mansion begin to fall victim to an unseen murderer over the April Fool's Day weekend, but nothing is as it seems. So we're getting to my favorite part of the movie review, which let's get into it and deep dive and talk way more thorough about this. This one came out in 1986, and it also falls in line with being a part of all those films at the time that were inspired by Halloween. So you have all these horror movies that started coming out that were based off of a famous event or holiday. So obviously, I even talked about that quite a while ago when I had done my commentary on Friday the 13th, talking about Halloween and how that one related to the fact of the popularity of that one, that they wanted to recreate it, and even technically prom night, because that was a part of that theme as well. And we have April Fool's Day. And when this film first came out, it wasn't the only one that was an April Fool's inspired horror film that came out at the time, but this is the one that I remember the most, and it's actually called April Fool's Day. And how this story is that Muffy takes several of her college friends and invites them out for their spring break holiday because it's their last year of college. They want this big hurrah, so she invites them out to her family mansion. And she's an heiress. She is inheriting a lot of money, and she's inheriting this house.
Well, there's an awful lot to be done with this place.
Sounds as if you own it.
I will, if all goes well. Next month, when I turn 21, it's my first stage inheritance.
First stage? What's your second?
So she decides that she wants to bring all these friends out for a very fun evening, a very great time. Well, in the process of all of her friends coming over in the ferry boat, there is a terrible accident. You have characters Skip and Arch, who are messing around playing this game with a switchblade. Well, in their antics, one of them gets stabbed in the gut. Well, while everybody is freaking out and trying to figure out what happened, why did you stab this guy, it's an April Fool's Day joke.
Enough's enough.
What are you scared? Hey, I said give it a rest!
Oh, fuck.
What you looking for? We got him! Yeah, did we nail him?
Ha ha ha, April Fools, very funny.
Because it is April Fool's Day weekend.
April Fool.
And funny haha, because of all this going on and the antics, one of the crew on the ferryman boat actually does get into a horrific accident. Luckily, a bystander who happened to be a cop was there for the weekend for whatever reason, we don't know. He was able to lend the ferryman his boat so that they could take off and go to the hospital to get him some help. And of course, you have this cop who is scolding these guys for goofing around and causing this guy to get injured because of their April Fool's Day prank. And he even scolds Muffy and tells them, "Don't you leave, don't take off. I have questions for all of you until we figure out more what is going on with this poor guy who got hurt," and takes Muffy's family boat and takes off. So after having that grand opening with all that going on, you have Muffy who takes them all back up to the house. Well, she has everything set up for them, that they're gonna have a grand dinner at the dining room table. There's the energy of where they're all friends, they've been together for quite some time, talking and having a good time.
So with this toast, may our hearts run over and our friendships be formed.
All right.
Oh, cheers.
Cheers. One down.
Okay.
Oh my God.
April Fool.
Then you go to the evening where everybody goes up to their rooms, and there's several different pranks throughout every single room. They each have their own unique prank that's designed for them to kind of throw them off, and some of them are a little more cruel than the others, that they were taken a little too far. But Muffy's pranking her friends, just kind of like a funny gag since they're out there for the April Fool's Day weekend, until the next morning. And they're all kind of realizing that Muffy's acting strange, and they can't quite put it together. But Muffy's not acting like herself, not like she was the evening before, where she was happy, smiling, joking around with everyone. This time she's very standoffish, she's shy, she's hiding her face, she's acting just abnormal.
Good morning.
I was just hungry. I must look a mess. Oh,
Morning, Mom.
I forgot to get dressed.
So who made her night?
So you're starting to get these weird quirks from her.
That's weird.
Then the story is progressing because you have the character Skip, who feels bad because of his prank with Arch, that this ferryman got injured. So the night before, he goes out and he gets drunk. Well, he disappears.
That's suspicious.
Well, the following day, while everybody is finally just relaxing, having a good time, they're doing games or other things, and just having a good time, and Muffy's kind of doing her own thing, which they kind of just shrug it off at first. Well, one of the couples, who are Kit and Rob, end up at the little, I want to say it's a boathouse, and they're having their little makeout session. Well, they're interrupted when they see the dead body of Skip. So they rush to the house and they get the friends. Well, they all take off and they want to find Skip. And they also want to just start searching and making sure that, you know, he wasn't pranking them. Well, in them going out and looking for Skip, well, then Arch disappears and then other people start disappearing.
Huh, that's odd.
Until you get to the point where you have them back at the house and the water has turned off. Well, Muffy suggests to them, well, we do have a well that's on the property if you want to go get water.
Oh, the main. It's probably broken. There's no water? What's happening?
There's no water.
What? It happens sometimes. But there's still the well. Jesus, I'll go. Just point me in the right direction.
Not without me.
And you have characters Harvey and Nikki go out to the well, and in them going to get water, obviously it's the typical thing where the bucket falls in, so naturally one of them needs to go down to get the bucket to get the water, because they can't go the whole weekend without water, and they're obviously trapped there because they don't have a boat or any form of transportation, and they're not able to call to the mainland to get anybody on the phone to come and get them. Harvey is Mr. Tough Guy the whole time, but when push comes to shove, he doesn't want to go down the dark well because Nikki unfortunately dropped the flashlight down the well and he's not going down. Well, Nikki makes the decision, well fine, screw it, I will go down there. When her going down the well, they discover that the missing friends that they could not find were all dead and floating in this murky, disgusting well. The remaining friends who are still alive all meet back at the house and now know what is going on, that someone is out there on this island with them and is killing them off one by one. They have to figure out who is this mysterious killer. Is it somebody that they don't know, an unknown assailant? Or is it one of them? Is it somebody that they know, one of their friends that is there for the holiday, killing them off one by one? Or is it Muffy, who has now been mysteriously acting very strange, very abnormal for herself?
It appears that the killer is indeed somewhere in this very room.
And you continue till you get to the very nitty-gritty ending of this movie, where you have them, obviously the typical where they were at first all gonna stay together and keep everything safe, but you gotta do the typical thing in a horror movie where everybody kind of goes off one by one and does their own thing because they gotta search for this. And in Nikki and Chaz's case, where Nikki decides she wants off this island no matter what, so she goes to her room to pack and leave.
Look, stay if you like. Lock your door, dig a trench, hang out. But once I leave this place, I am never coming back.
You're supposed to all stay together.
Oh, yeah, that has been real effective.
And you have all those deaths that end up happening until you get to the very ending, where the only two characters who are still alive are Rob and Kit. And come to find out, what the situation was that Muffy was going around one by one killing everyone. But Rob and Kit, in their discovery at the very end, is that Muffy had a twin, and that her twin's name was Buffy, and that Buffy was actually the one that was killing them all off one by one, including Muffy themselves, because Kit and Rob end up finding the head of Muffy. So them trying to run away from this very, very sick individual because they find all these paperworks finding out that Buffy has been in a mental asylum and that she had escaped and that this was her doing this. In the very ending, when Kit is trying to run away from Buffy, and she runs into the room, and what does she discover? She discovers that all of the friends that they thought were dead were all sitting very quietly in this room, and that Muffy, not Buffy, but Muffy, had this all planned out to be a murder mystery weekend.
Gotcha, bitch!
Poor Rob comes out thinking that his poor girlfriend is being attacked by this Buffy character. He's the last one to find out that it's all an elaborate joke. Very lucky that, Rob didn't come out stabbing everybody and just taken aback like what poor Kit was. But the announcement is that Muffy literally tells them all this is what she wants to do with this house, this vacation home, because when she inherits it, she needs to find a way to make money. So she wants to make this mansion into a murder mystery house.
Next month, I get the house as part of my mother's inheritance. It's true. But only if I can show my father that it could carry itself with taxes and expenses and all. Otherwise, he's going to sell it to the family. So I decided to turn it into a country inn. But not just a stuffy old run-of-the-mill country inn. One that specializes in offering a once-in-a-lifetime whodunit weekend.
Obviously, like she said, she wasn't going to do it like with her friends where people aren't going to come and have no idea that this is happening, that they at least are going to come and it's kind of like a murder mystery night that we know of nowadays, where you all get to play a character and whoever gets the card that says you are the murderer, you get to play that character, and you know that. But that's what she wanted to do with this house so that she could make money to keep the funds to keep the upkeep for this place. And this movie goes from being a horror movie to a very light-hearted movie very quickly. One of the scenes that is a very common, well-known scene that people talk about is the scene where Nikki is in the kitchen reading a magazine. And it is talking about the girls' sex lives. You know, the typical thing that young women apparently do is talk about these things. Well, the fun thing about that is that's exactly why this scene is even in the film, is because it wasn't even originally in the script whatsoever. It's a completely ad-libbed scene that was added because when they were off camera at lunchtime at one of the moments, Nikki was standing around with the rest of the cast and the crew and she was reading this magazine out loud, and the girls and all them were just having a casual conversation about it. And the director right away recognized that moment and wanted to relive that and put it on screen. So they took the magazine, added their own version of questions in there, and then had Nikki read them, and then just had the girls in the kitchen ad-libbing that moment and just going with it. And honestly, I love it when things are ad-libbed into movies, and then when you find out that it's ad-libbed, it just becomes that nice little icing on the cake type idea. Also, for obvious reasons, due to the fact that this movie is light in violence, because of the fact that no one technically died, duh, but because of the light in violence, this was played on movies late night quite often. So because of that aspect, that's why this film has a very large cult following. But, it's well-deserved, in my opinion.
Mother knows best.
Before this movie was shot, several weeks beforehand, the cast and the crew, at least the cast all met up in Vancouver beforehand and stayed at a hotel so that they could all kind of mingle together, get to know each other, so that they actually could build a repertoire and seem like they were really good friends. So that's why when the film starts, you get this feeling that these people all know each other, they're good friends, they have this banter, and that's why, because they got together beforehand, which I think is really, really cool. And this isn't the only time, especially in the 1980s, when something like this has happened, which kind of leads into my other fact. Like, Muffy was originally going to be cast as Linnea Quigley, but this was right at the time that she had to turn it down because she was doing Return of the Living Dead. Obviously, we all know how that goes, and she was trash, and she was fabulous in it.
Do you ever fantasize about being killed?
That was also another aspect that Return of the Living Dead did, is they had all these guys, all these actors and actresses meet beforehand and hang out and do their scripts and their lines together so that they could get that repertoire and get to know each other. So April Fool's Day did the exact same thing, where they met up beforehand. Back to Deborah Foreman, who played Muffy. So she had originally auditioned for the part, and of course they didn't give it to her at first, and didn't think that they wanted to cast her as that, so they had tried for Linnea Quigley. Well, Deborah Foreman came back again to audition for the part again, because she really wanted the part, and just blew them away. And the performance she gave them was the performance that we got for the film, and like I said, she did a phenomenal job, and I can't see anybody else playing that character. She did an amazing job doing Muffy and Buffy, even though Buffy...
Buffy, just stop now. Stop. No. Buffy, no!
But she was a twin. She did have a twin in the film. You find that out. Obviously, I said spoilers, so you'd be able to find out that her twin was actually Skip. Now, I had said that the cast had all met up at Vancouver beforehand to all hang out and get to know each other, all but one. And that was Jay Baker, who played the character of Harvey. And the producer, Frank Mancuso, had actually stayed behind trying to find the perfect character to play Harvey, because they just were not finding the right person to play the role. Well, as soon as he got a hold of Jay Baker and realized this was the guy he wanted to play Harvey, whisked him onto the shoot, well, it kind of fit perfect that Harvey's character is the one that is the odd man out. He's the one that everybody else barely knows him, except for Muffy. Muffy's the only one who knows him. So he's kind of the odd man out. So it kind of was like a happy accident that it ended up being that way. What a surprise! What a surprise! This is one of those rare moments where a book was made for April Fool's Day, but the book was made after the film. That it was based off of the screenplay. And that's pretty rare. Usually, you know, you have movies that are based off of a book, but it's more related to the original screenplay than it is the film itself, because there is an alternate ending that is in the book, but is not in the film. And that alternate ending that they decided to take away was, and it was filmed. It was originally filmed and was there, but director Fred Walton decided after the fact that it didn't fit with how he wanted the film to go. Because after, you know, obviously going through and doing the edits and seeing how the flow of the film is, he just thought that the original ending just didn't fit with what he wanted for the film. And the original ending was where everybody was leaving, heading out, and the last few, who were Rob and his girlfriend Kit, and then Chaz and his girlfriend Nikki, all four of them decide that they want to head back up to the house, and they're gonna get even with Muffy and prank her after her big to-do that she did to them this whole entire weekend. Well, they get up to the house and come to find out that her twin brother Skip, in a jealous rage because Muffy has inherited the house, decides that he's going to kill his sister. and these 4 friends come up to the house, and they end up saving Muffy's life, and they stop Skip. Because of that ending not going to be there anymore, they had to come up with a different alternative ending, which is the ending that the film has now. So it's not really an alternative ending, it is the ending of the film, because after reading the facts about it and learning it, it makes perfect sense. Because I even thought about it when I was watching the film, that I noticed that Muffy's character and Nan's character, their hair is different. And that is because that scene with the Jack-in-the-Box and Nan cutting Muffy's neck, you know, doing her prank and getting even with her, that was filmed several months later, like 3 or 4 months after the fact, because they decided to add that in for the ending instead. So it was more playful, and it kind of stayed in the same tone as what the film ended up being. And it's also kind of a fun thing to note, because during the party you have Nan, who is pouting the whole entire time and upset because of the awful prank that Muffy ended up playing on her. Unfortunately, hers was one of the ones that went too far. That's at that ending scene when you see that Nan at that end was actually playing it up, that she wasn't that upset anymore, that she didn't care, and that she was more lighthearted and playful about it, and that was her way of tricking Muffy so that she could get her revenge onto her. So yeah, there were a lot of really fun facts about this, and I need to find that book because I'm very interested in reading the book, because obviously in books you get a lot more details to things, and the fact that it did follow the screenplay a little bit more, but he sprinkled in his own little versions of it, because apparently in the book Harvey and Nikki's character and their love-hate relationship throughout the film, but in the book they actually do hook up by the end of the book. So, and there were other things that were in there that were not in the film, so I'm definitely interested in reading that. Be fun to do a compare and contrast with that. So what are my thoughts of this film? You should know that I really love this film. This is one of those ones that I put up there. It's a huge comfort film for me. And I also want to talk about the fact that my husband watched this with me for the first time ever. And I've been trying to get him to watch this film for so long, because as you all know, that he doesn't like horror films. That he's now kind of getting into them a little bit more, just because of with my channel and me talking about it a lot more. Because before I really wouldn't converse with him about it because he doesn't have an interest in it, but because of my channel I would like suggest ideas, bounce them off of him, talk about facts and this and that, and I've been getting him to watch a lot more content with me as well. But he watched this film for the first time with me, and it was hilarious because he knew something was up, because obviously throughout the film we were sitting there cuddling, and when you get to that part, just when the big reveal is about to happen, where Buffy is chasing after Kit and Kit runs into the room and you find out that this whole thing was just an elaborate prank, I sat up and I was watching him. I wasn't watching the film anymore, I was watching him. And he kept thinking in his head, he's like, well, that's really weird, why'd she stop cuddling with me? And then the reveal happens, and his face was hilarious. Where it's everything you want it to be in that moment. It was the same way like Kit's face, that I'm so confused, and then he would look at me, and then he would look at the film, and he looked at me, and then I had my shitty grin, and then he's like, no. I'm like, yeah. And obviously Muffy does her whole April Fool's thing, and he just is laughing with me and everything, and he flat out told me, he goes, I'm gonna be honest with you, and I hated that film. He's like, I hated it. I was so mad at it. I was mad at these characters and all this stuff that they were doing and how it was set up. And he goes, and then you get to the end and that reveal, and he's like, oh my God. Oh my God. And he's like, and now he loves it. And I'm like, there's a reason I wanted you to watch this. You like this kind of thing. And he goes, yeah, but I hate it when people are just stupid and they're dying. And I'm like, well, it wasn't that at all. It was an April Fool's joke. So obviously I love this film and I also recommend it. And it's a fun one. And like I said before, it's got a huge cult following. Well deserved. It's the perfect film that if you want to start introducing your kids to horror films, this is the perfect film to do that. And this was one of those ones that did it for me. Because like I said, I was in junior high the first time I saw this film, and it was at my cousin's house. And my little cousins really wanted to watch it, and they're several years younger than me, and I kept thinking, I'm like, who wants to watch a horror movie when you're... Because that was at the point in time where I had no interest in horror films. I was scared of them. That if I was going to think of an age, I probably was about 12 years old, and I had no interest in horror movies at that point in time. It was only a mere 2 years later that I fell in love with him, but anyway... So when my cousin suggested to watch it, I'm like, oh my God. And of course the whole time I'm freaking out. And then that ending happens. And my little brain just went, pew. You go from being heightened, totally super scared, thinking everybody's dead, and then the reveal of the April Fool's Day. April Fools, nobody's dead.
Gotcha, bitch!
And yeah, and I fell in love with that movie like instantly. That's like the perfect film to get if you want your kids to enjoy a horror film that's technically lighthearted. There's no violence that's on screen, because technically you can't have the violence on screen because nobody's dying anyway. Duh! But yes, I hope you enjoyed my movie review of April Fool's Day. As always, let me know in the comments down below. Have you seen this film? What do you think of it? I mean, I can obviously see a bunch of people disliking this one too, just because of what the film is. I'm that type of person that I'm very easygoing when it comes to things. I understand we all have different points of views and opinions, and as I should say every single time for these are my opinions, these are my points of views to the film, and I'm here for the conversations to talk about it. And I appreciate conversations and things like that, because films that I used to despise and hate, I actually enjoy now because of conversations like this that we can have online and converse. And I have this new appreciation for films that I would have never thought about watching ever again. But this one I've always had an appreciation for, and I've always loved it. And it's got a special place in my heart, and it will always be there. So yeah, let me know what you think of this film. When was the first time you saw this one? Do you even remember that moment as well? But like I said, it's ingrained in my head, and it will be with me for the rest of my life. But thank you for joining me, and thank you for keep coming back. If you're brand new here, please like, please subscribe, come join the Luxxy family. And here on Luxxy Charms, like I said, this month's theme is, as I forget my, I almost say unlucky souls. This month's theme is tan lines to chalk lines. Although nobody died in this one. Anyway, if you would like to follow me on my other social medias, please follow me on my Twitter for Charsie Luxxx with 3 X's, or on my Instagram for Charsie87. And as always, I hope you all have a Luxxy Charms kind of day. Bye! When unknown is silent, an unknown assailant Nikki is in the kitchen and she is reading a cosmopolitan. It is Deborah Foreman. Are they both Deborah? Yeah, Deborah Goodrich. That's why it seemed weird. End up saving her life, and they stop Skit. Because technically you can't really have the violence on